everyone. How's it going?
Hello.
Hey Ace, what you been up to this week?
I'm good. Just writing code, binging movies, and sleeping.
Yeah. Wait,
How are
what was the
you?
last one you said? Engine movers?
And sleeping.
Oh, sorry. I thought
How are
you
you,
said
Rizal?
so I need more sleep. I'm doing good, similar to you, trying to learn Swift and writing blog posts and stuff.
Yeah,
Vok Rock said they're
binging
watching
movies.
movies, binging movies. Hey
Bullet
Tanya.
train and the
Also,
likes.
super excited about today's stream. We're gonna talk about something that's really popular right now, which is AI and figuring out basically maybe we can use digital identity tools to reduce misinformation and bias in AI, which is a really common problem right now. So
100%. But as
yeah.
usual, welcome everyone. Welcome Tanya, Claire. Always awesome to have everyone in the audience, being around. And let's get to it. We have an amazing guest today,
Yeah,
Rizal.
bring him on. It's Nick. All right. Um, we'll start. Oh, and hey Nate as well. Thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna start off with our little warm up question. I used to come up with these off the top of my head, but now it's starting to run out, so I had to write them ahead of time. So my question to y'all is reality TV, love it or leave it. I finally found my people here at TBD. Some of them like reality TV shows and some people don't. So curious, Nick, what's your thoughts? And audience, tell us in the chat.
Yeah, I guess I'd say I'm mixed on reality TV. I like a lot of the more competition shows. I don't know if you've ever watched like American Ninja Warrior, or the original Japanese version of it was really cool. But actually, there's a show that's one of my favorite shows of all time that's technically a reality TV show, but it's a little bit different. It's called The Joe Schmo Show. It's from like the early 2000s, and the premise of it was that it was a reality TV show, but actually everyone except for one person was an actor. So basically, it's like there was one where it was like a bounty hunt, like Dog the Bounty Hunter type show, where they're trying to join the Dog the Bounty Hunter team, and they have this guy on there who thinks he's really competing for this job, but everyone else on the show is just basically trying to make this guy go insane without like exposing that it's fake, and see how far they can push it, kind
That
of.
is crazy.
It's really crazy.
That is insane. I should check it out. What you
Yeah,
call
it's
it
kind of
again?
the Joe Schmo Show. It's kind of
Wow.
hard to find, to be honest.
That's cool. Wait, is it hard to find because it's not really on streaming services?
I don't think it's on streaming. I think you could buy the DVD box set on Amazon and then buy a DVD player. And
Wow. That reminds me, people were talking about, I mean, this is totally a non sequitur. People were talking about lost media and how
yeah,
media from the past is no longer around, and people were talking about maybe decentralized solutions would be helpful with that.
yeah.
Ace, what about you? What do you think? I see
I
some
think,
ones in the audience too. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think I've come to terms with it that I don't mind reality TV, but I mind romantic reality TV. So just like Nick was saying, I would like, for example, I would love to watch Physical 100 because it's a bit competitive. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. And Tanya too likes Physical 100. So I'm okay with that. But when it comes to, getting my feelings with other people, no.
I am a fan of almost all reality TV shows. So if it's physical, like American Ninja Warrior, I'm watching it. But I'm also gonna watch Love Is Blind, Married at First. I watch all the Love Is Blinds. Love Is Blind, Sweden, Brazil. I'm into all of it. I just think it's funny. I just get really invested, and I'm just it's so interested how it's after one day, and they're like, I am in love with this person. I'm like, really?
Oh.
Does that get easier to watch if you understand that they're just doing it to get their Instagram followers,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
you're just trying to be TikTok famous. I get
Yeah.
it. There's comments in the audience. Tanya said Physical 100 was her fave. Alone is the best.
Alone's
Kristen
good.
Wiig was one of the fake players on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
On the Joe Schmo show.
Oh, on the Joe Schmo show. Because I was like, wait,
Yeah.
what? And then Nate also says Joe Schmo show was wild. Such a crazy concept, and every contestant other than Joe is literally an actor. That's cool. I need to tune into that one.
Definitely.
Cool. Let's dive into the actual tech and all the stuff that people came here for. Why don't you, Nick, introduce yourself to folks? Let them know who you are, what you do.
Yeah. So my name's Nick Reynolds. I'm the identity lead at Consensus Mesh, which is the same as saying that I'm the lead of the Veramo Labs team. So Veramo Labs is a team within the Consensus Mesh research and development division. So we do pure open source research and development, and as part of that, we work on a number of different libraries that are used throughout the ecosystem. We maintain like the did resolver library, which almost all TypeScript projects use, as well as like did JWT and a few others. But we also developed Veramo, which is like a slightly more comprehensive framework for building with DIDs, verifiable credentials, and a few other pieces of technology. And then just a few months ago, we actually donated Veramo to the Decentralized Identity Foundation. So it was always like it was always supposed to be a public good, and it's always been open source and permissively licensed, but we wanted to hopefully bring more community contributions in and just make it feel like more of a community driven project. So the Decentralized Identity Foundation has been a really great partner for us for a lot of years. And yeah, we're happy that we were able to donate it. And we actually do have a weekly user group every Thursday. So if you use Veramo or you're thinking about using it or you want to contribute, yeah, I can remind people more about that at the end, I guess.
Yeah, let me find the link to it and throw it up. Go ahead, Ace.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, especially for the audience, what does donating this to the foundation mean in terms of the project itself and the larger ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like huge. It doesn't change the project in a super massive way. It's really just us kind of proving our commitment to this being a public good, and we don't want it to be something that is just a project built by one company for like the use cases that we are interested in. We want it to be something that can be used in a multitude of different use cases, and really just have the framework develop based on the needs of the community. So we're still maintaining it, we still work on it, and we review the pull requests and do work on it all the time. But we're just hoping that this is some way for, and we've always, over the past several years, we've always accepted outside contributions to it. This is just kind of a way to, I guess, like formalize that process a little bit around, like this open source standards body. So DIF is also like it's a sub organization of the Linux Foundation. So it just kind of has like a bit of weight to it, saying like, yes, we always said we weren't going to do anything evil with this software, and now we can like kind of provably non-evil, I guess.
That's cool. Thanks for asking that, Ace, because I was also wondering. I'm like, what does that look like to be donated to the Diff Foundation? All right, so you kind of talked about Veramo Labs. Do you want to add more? Because that was one of the next questions that I had. You talked about how it fit within Consensus Mesh. But any other things to add?
Yeah, I guess
I was gonna say you didn't even talk much about yourself.
That's true. you didn't. Like,
Wait, I was gonna add like, are you related to Ryan Reynolds by any chance? But I didn't even get a
To
chance to
who?
ask that.
To which
Ryan
Reynolds?
Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah, Deadpool.
Oh yeah. We're twins.
Well, yeah, so you didn't get
Yeah.
a chance to
see a
like introduce
resemblance.
yourself, your background a little bit or
That's
whatever.
true. Yeah, you
Yeah.
did talk about Veramo and like you work there, but like, what gets you excited about life and all that?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been like in software development for 12 years, and I did my first 5 years in the video game industry. And that was really cool, but I don't know if anyone watching has worked in the video game industry. It can be kind of crazy in certain ways. And then back in 2017, a friend of mine just like sent me a link and said, "Hey, have you heard about Ethereum?" And I like read a bunch of blog posts, started to read the white paper and everything, and I was actually I was actually traveling in Vietnam for like 3 weeks when he sent this to me, and as he was doing that, I was like, "This is definitely going to be really important. Ethereum is super cool." So I Venmoed him $500, and I was like, "Hey, buy me some Ethereum." I can't do it because I'm in Vietnam right now. And then right after that, I started like looking into things that I could do in the industry. My first project was sort of like it was just like a personal project with a couple of friends, kind of like a decentralized Wikipedia, just a way for people to use Ethereum and IPFS to like collaboratively edit articles and stuff like that. And then I ended up joining a company called Civil, which was one of the early-ish like Ethereum startups, actually funded by Consensus, and it was a project that was like a journalism collective, basically. So we had about almost 15 different like news organizations that were joining together and basically saying, we're going to come up with this sort of set of, I don't know, qualifications, you might say. Like, these are the sort of journalistic integrity qualifications that we ascribe to, and we ended up making like a token curated registry for that. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that concept of token curated registries, but it's basically a way to use some smart contract economics to get a list of good things. So this was a list of news organizations that all were trustworthy, basically. So this was going from way back in 2017. I've been invested in the sort of like verifiability, trustworthiness use cases in this space. And then in 2020, I joined Consensus, and since then I've been working on projects related to DID and verifiable credentials. The first one was called Certo, and now I work at obviously Veramo Labs. Yeah, and I guess other than that, I ride my bike a lot and I go climbing and I play video games.
Love it. Well-rounded. Go ahead, Ace. My bad.
I was saying awesome. That was good to hear. Very interesting background.
Yeah, especially like the whole journalism concept. I think it's really cool whenever I hear about how we're using technology to improve or enhance other industries.
Yeah.
So I found this blog post by you that I was like, this is a really interesting blog post. I just put it in the chat. Basically, you talk about bringing identity to AI. And like, before you read the blog post, it might be like, yo, why would you want to bring identity to AI? Why would like an artificial intelligence need identity? Any thoughts on that? What was like your motivation for doing something like this?
Yeah, I think there's basically like two major reasons. Number one is around like misinformation. So especially with things like, we got the 2024 election coming up, but there's obviously elections throughout the world dealing with this problem all the time. And you see edited images or even deep fakes and random news sources that you have no reason like you don't know if it's trustworthy or not. And so this was just a way to say, hey, I think that there's something that we can do to put a little bit of verifiability next to all of these pieces of content that you see. It doesn't necessarily mean that like just this thing that this little demo that I've made, it doesn't like say that, oh, this information is true, but it allows you to at least trace the source of it. And then, you can imagine over time, things kind of get built up on top of it. A list of trustworthy sources could be attached on top of it, so that if you see a piece of content, it's wrapped inside of a verifiable credential. And I can check that the DID is like on this list of verifiable news sources. Then I can put a big check mark on it when I render it. And people can say like, okay, this is probably a pretty good piece of information. And then the tough part is over time, you have to kind of train people to react when they don't see that. Because if I just take a screenshot of something and post it somewhere, it's not going to have that extra bit of like metadata there. And there's not really a technical solution to that. It's more of like a UX problem. People just have to kind of understand, like, once we have these options out there, if I start seeing content that doesn't have that, I need to be more careful with it. Another like related to that is the idea of like addressing like bias in AI systems. And again, this doesn't address it directly. It provides like one little piece that I think could be helpful, which is that a lot of times people use AI systems to do tons of different things. And in fact, even like some governments are using them to make decisions and stuff like that. And when they start using them, they're like, oh, this seems pretty good. It's helping me out. It's making my job a little bit easier. And then maybe like 2 years down the road, a research article comes out and it says, hey, we actually discovered that this AI is really biased against, this group of people. The data set that it was trained on is not, it's not good. And like, you have to go back and reevaluate these decisions you made. So this kind of would allow you to say, oh, I have this very easy way to look at all of the data that I got and see, oh, all of this little chunk of data, that was all created by this AI. And now I know that like I need to trace that back and make sure that I kind of reevaluate the decisions that I made then. So that's a little bit more of like a reactive solution, but I still think that it provides a little bit of assistance there. Because otherwise, if you just get your information back in plain text and add it into some, your own database, you're not going to remember to go back and double check it and things like that. So I think those two pieces are pretty closely related. But then there's the other one of just like making cooler applications. And that's like where, I don't know, that's kind of where the money is, right? And where the more exciting stuff is. And I think that it's really interesting because you can create applications where you don't have to create like one API for your human users and a separate permissioned API for bots or something. Because bots are, everyone like uses bots all the time. There's like a bunch of cool Twitter bots and stuff like that. We want to support them in a certain way. And if you have these two different APIs, it just makes developing bots a lot harder. It means you have to get special API permissions. It means that, like what happened on a couple of different social networks, like they can just turn off API access. So this is a way to bring like permissionless, app development in this space that includes people and bots or AIs, whatever you call them. And by sharing the same like identity framework, it just makes it a lot easier to build that. And then you can layer specific identity pieces on top, because I do probably want to know if you're a human or if you're an AI, but the core framework being DID just makes that a lot easier to build.
I'm a bit curious with the explanation that you gave. Introducing identity into the space or into AI in general, does it mean it covers like multiple actors in the sense of the AI that is generating the content itself? Sometimes the content that is being generated to confirm if it's authentic or otherwise, or are there any other individual actors in the space that the introducing identity to them would make the most sense, or is currently being covered for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like you could think of it like each piece of content having its own identity, or the AI that creates it having its own identity. But it's really about like, yeah, having all the different actors, whether they're people or AI or organizations like DAOs, stuff like that, they all can have this same identity layer. So if I see a tweet from a DAO that I'm interested in, I should have some way of very easily knowing that yes, that was a tweet that was sent by
the original,
the original DAO. They like approved it and stuff like that. So the same thing kind of applies to organizations and people. It's just a framework to make that process easy. You only have to build one tech stack basically to support all these different types of actors in the system.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I really liked that you were doing that experiment as well. I think it's a problem people are having, like you said, around like the deep fakes. I did see an article, I believe Angie shared it with me, around like the White House was looking for ways of like cryptographic verification because there was deep fakes coming out of like elected officials and all of that. And then Ace brought one of Moises's thoughts from the Discord to here, and I've read about this too, where the Coalition of Content Authenticity and Provenance is addressing these same issues. Where what I saw, like they have like this little video demo where they're like, oh, they're working with like, I don't know if it was Canon or Sony, one of the camera companies, where like you put this little like information, I don't know, icon, and then you can see
watermark,
huh? Watermark, thank you. Yeah, they put like a watermark that has all the information about like who created this, and it's like a verifiable credential, but like in the form of a watermark. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, they're building it directly into, I think, Canon and Sony, I think, maybe signed on. Like when you take the picture on the camera, it's part of the image from the beginning, so that you have that like provenance of, yeah, this had this Photoshop operation applied to it, but it came from this original source, and so it's really interesting.
That's so cool. But I do think what you said, right? Like getting people used, like we got to figure out, I guess over time it'll become the norm or whatever, like of it being like, okay, if we don't see that little watermark there, or if we're not able to see all the details, then this could possibly be fake. Maybe like community notes on Twitter or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's dive into maybe the demo that you have for us so we can learn a little bit more. Throw it up. Here it is.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit before I get started about how it's kind of working. So what you see here is what we call the Agent Explorer. It's just like a developer UI for working with Veramo agents. Veramo agent being a piece of software that allows you to manage DIDs, verifiable credentials, and supports DIDCOM. So DIDCOM is this, secure communication protocol between DIDs, which we have contributed a lot to, and we really think that DIDCOM is really interesting. And it can do things. It can be thought of as sort of like the Signal protocol, where you can do secure, end-to-end encrypted chat between two people, but it can also have these like sub protocols layered on top of it to do kind of like automated workflows and communicate with software systems or organizations. And you don't have to write a new protocol to do it. It just works with DIDCOM. So this demo is just going to be using two agents. The first agent is kind of the one you're looking at. It's running in my browser. So it uses just like local browser storage for most of this stuff. You can see that it's connected to my Ethereum wallet right now. So it's imported a couple of DIDs associated with that. In Veramo, we support a number of different DID methods. I think there's like maybe 8 or something that we have plugins for right now. But if you have another, including like DID-ion, and if you have other DID methods, it's very easy to write a plugin to support a new one. So there's this agent, and then there's another agent that we have running in the cloud, and it's the same Veramo agent. The same code runs in the browser or in the cloud. And so I'm basically going to send a message from my browser over DIDCOM to this cloud agent, and it's going to do some stuff and send me a message back. And just for this demo, I'm going to use, it's just easier, didpeer. Didpeer is a really simple did method that is kind of designed for working with DIDCOM. And I'll go over, I call this star chat. So this is on the back end. We use a text generation model called star chat. It's part of, or it was, I believe, created by the Hugging Face team. If you're not familiar with Hugging Face, it's a open source like repository basically for working with like open source AIs. And so it's just making an API call to the Hugging Face model and getting something back. So I'll go ahead and create a new thread. And one quick note. So when I made this demo, that was back in like July.
Yeah.
It was working pretty well. Some things about the model seem to have degraded over time, and so the answers that I'm getting are not as good.
Okay.
But
No worries.
I'll ask it a question anyways. So it's going to take a few seconds because it has to, on the back end, it has to make like 5 API calls to Hugging Face, and I'm not paying for the pro version. So it'll take a little while, but then it does give us this answer. So it says Web5 is a concept for next generation of the World Wide Web.
That's cool though.
Yeah, and then it starts to talk in Spanish
Yeah.
down here.
That's AI. No, every time I used to work at GitHub, and I would always tell people like I can't control the output, so
Yeah.
I try my best.
Yeah.
Necesito mejorar mi inglés.
Yeah, so basically what's happened here is that it did the API call to Hugging Face, and it took the output and it put it inside of a verifiable credential. So now I know, the prompt that created this output, the output itself, the model that created it, what the license for that model is, some research papers that are referenced by the model, stuff like that. Again, this is not, it's not super slick looking. It's pretty basic in terms of what it actually looks like. You wouldn't want to put this in front of an end user the way that it is, but it does, now I have this. Oh, actually, it's not saving the credentials in our data store, so you can only see them here. But yeah, now you have these verifiable credentials. So if I want to use this in a blog post or whatever, I can actually just embed the whole credential in the blog post rather than just copy pasting it.
This as a proof of concept, I think is really excellent and cool. I love it.
What else was I asking it? It
Yeah.
was totally wrong. We are not a verifiable claims working group implementation. Not true.
I think, yeah, like, I mean, obviously on the AI side, it could be fine tuned. And you said you made this a while ago, and I like pulled this up. I'm like, hey, actually, can you demo this? It's really cool. But I like this idea where there's proof of like, here's where I got this information from.
Right.
'Cause it's really hard sometimes to figure out like, how do I credit these people, or is this person just coming up with random information like on TikTok and all these other things? Like people just jump on the platform and they're like, did you know this is what happened? But they're really just doing it for like retweets and all that. There is a question in the Discord for you. Oh, I don't want to cover your face, Ace. I'll put me at the bottom. But they said, like, what are the essential considerations and technical steps involved in implementing a new DID method within Veramo framework? And how can this integration support enhance interoperability and security in decentralized identity management systems?
Yeah. So it's pretty easy. So Veramo is a pretty unopinionated framework. It's like pretty generalized, and it's very modular. So it's all built on top of these modules that you can pick and choose. Oh, hey, I want I want this module in my agent. I don't want that one. I can pick and choose the ones I want. And so when you're talking about, integrating a new DID method, it's all you have to do is create a new plugin, which to give you an example, a plugin for a DID method will probably be about, like, depending on exactly how the DID method works, it's probably about like 100 or 150 lines of TypeScript. It's not that much work really. And then you just sort of you can publish that to npm or just put it directly into your implementation a different way, and add it as the plugin. And now Veramo knows about it, and you can just reference it when you want to, like, issue credentials or use the DID. So, like, what's nice about this is, like, you don't have to do everything else about the Veramo stack will work just fine with your new DID method. You don't have to modify any of what's going on, above or below it in the stack. You can still use it to manage your keys, and you'll be able to use this new DID method to issue credentials from Veramo. So it's pretty easy. It's really just depends on the specification of the DID method. But you can, like, I mean, if I have to implement a new DID method in Veramo, what I do is I copy one of the other ones, change the name of it, and then change a little bit of the logic inside of it. It's pretty much that simple. And yeah, obviously, like, the more DID methods you can support, the more interoperability there's going to be, to an extent. Like, you want to consider which DID methods you do want to support, because there are some out there that are, like, not that great and don't provide much security. I think there are like 186
hundreds, yeah,
of registered DID methods with the diff, and, like, if you go through them, like, maybe like 30 of them are actually decentralized, and 150 of them are, like, just running on someone's server somewhere. But they can be good. That can still be good if you're just doing sort of like, proof of concept. I want to iterate on this thing really quickly, or my users don't really care that the DIDs are purely decentralized, right? I just want to get something out there. And even if you're working with sort of like non-decentralized, decentralized identifiers, you can build the rest of your tech stack in this framework. And then when you're ready, you can switch over to a really decentralized identity system and not have to refactor everything else about what you've built.
I found the way you described that very interesting, and I'm actually going to go check for possible use cases for a non-decentralized decentralized identifier, because it sounds like completely wrong. I mean, just from the term itself. But yeah, thank you for that explanation. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know some of them were running on people's servers. I have like
there's this concept of, like, progressive decentralization, so, or sufficient decentralization. Like, if one of the biggest use cases of DIDs right now is Bluesky, right? And they created their own DID method, and it's not decentralized. It's just not. It's really interesting the way they've built it. But they readily admit, like, no, this is not the final version. We're using this because it lets us kind of imagine a future where we can transition to a fully decentralized DID method, and we want to get something out there right now and have people start using it.
That makes total sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That was good context. Yeah, and I'm trying to get Bluesky on this stream. I've been hitting them up, and they're like, "Yeah, maybe next week." All the time. Okay,
they're busy. Yeah,
they are busy. They're working hard. Okay, I have a follow-up for the AI thing. Do you, like, obviously you don't know what's in the future, right? Like, and you can't say, like, this is for sure gonna happen. But do you foresee a world, or do you hope to see a world where, like, ChatGPT or something like this has this type of tooling in it? Or do you think it would be better if, like, some other company or organization started their own, like, AI chat tool, but it also has, like, verifiable credential in it?
Yeah, I think that I hope as many different projects would integrate something like this. Like, it doesn't have to be this exactly, obviously, but some form of verifiable data, some sort of standards-based verifiable data, I should say, because it improves provenance and interoperability in really interesting ways. I'm not necessarily I'm not the most pro AI person in the world. I'm not super scared of it either, but the way I see this is it can kind of do both. It can make AI more powerful and more interoperable with existing systems and stuff like that, and it provides a little bit of some guardrails to it. Not enough. It's not the end of where we would go, but yeah. So I hope they all do, and I think there are a few decentralized AI companies out there looking into some things like this. I think that one of the challenges there is to kind of get some of these projects to understand the importance of building with standards and not just doing your own random implementation. Like anyone can use cryptographic keys to sign data, but if that's all you're doing, I don't know that when I receive that data, I'll actually be able to interpret it. But if you sign it as a verifiable credential, okay, boom, let's go. I know how to deal with this data. I don't have to do some research to figure out what you did. So verifiable credentials, they're so simple. They're almost nothing, kind of they're literally just signed data in a specific format. And I think that once people kind of understand how they work, everyone is like, oh yeah, obviously I would just use a verifiable credential for this.
Yeah. I think verifiable credentials have just so much potential, and they also easily just fitting into our current existence. There are people that already use some form of verifiable credentials that we're realizing it is, because you are not necessarily concerned about the technicalities of it, but it just works for you. And I think that just makes total sense as what a viable technology that could stand the test of time could look like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I'm pro verifiable credential everything ever since I discovered it. I'm like, I wish everything had it. Like, yeah, this is a real seller on Craigslist. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is I'm like, I want to know because the internet is like full of all of just people claiming things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to have some more security. And I get what you're saying about AI. I'm a pro AI person, but I do see it could go off. It is going off the rails, and it's like, how can we bring it back? If there's no more questions from the audience, y'all post your questions in there. I do want to move to the next question. Oh, there is one. Okay, hold on. How can IoT developers effectively leverage traceable data lineage provided by Veramo tools to detect and mitigate biases in AI models derived from IoT data sources? Oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting. It's maybe a little bit more use case specific than I could really answer, but I will say that you know, depending on your device, if it can run Node.js, you can run a Veramo agent inside of an IoT device, and definitely having a DID for each IoT device, to me makes a ton of sense. I imagine there's I can't remember the name of it, but there's this decentralized weather tracking application, and it uses weather sensors all around the world to do this. And in order to be able to create weather models from them, you need to know specifically this is the exact location of the weather model of the IoT device, sorry, and that it's sending accurate data. So if all of the data is signed by the DID and it has a verifiable credential saying, oh, this third party verified the location of it, you can add provenance into that system and say, oh, I'm only going to accept data from IoT devices that are also presenting this credential alongside their data. And if later on I find out that, oh, they actually moved that device and didn't tell anyone, I can very easily find all the data associated with that device, take it out of the system. So there definitely is a use case there, but I'm certainly not an IoT expert.
That's interesting on the weather thing. Any Ace, I seen you off mute. You have like follow-up questions or thoughts or anything?
That was a good question. I was actually going to ask you, Rizal, based on what you said about being pro AI and how you, what's it called, balance out the scary parts of it. And,
Mm.
because I mean, people talk about technology like there's some tech that should not be made, and there's some that should be made and stuff like that. And there's a fine line to cross. So if you're pro AI, I was going to ask you specifically, actually, how you look into um, the extremities of it, and just just your thought general to strongly be pro AI and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just feel like I think it can improve our workflows and stuff like that, but I do think there needs to be or where I balance it out as is like I was like heavily on the education of like how do we responsibly and ethically use and build AI tools. Like at GitHub, I would be telling people stuff like that, or even just
Mhm.
as simple as when they're using GitHub Copilot, don't over rely on it. A lot of people were getting upset. They're like, oh, people are like committing bad code into my code base. And I'm like, review the code just like you would with like a regular person. Like, I don't understand. I'm like, you wouldn't just commit your coworker's code. So if you see code that was generated by AI, like review it, like read it through. So that's where I don't know if that really fully answers it, but like I'm always like use
Check
it
and balances,
you,
basically.
but yeah. I'm like be responsible. Like don't be crazy with it. Oh, there's more questions in here. Oh, oops,
Oh.
sorry, I clicked the wrong one. There was one right before the one you just clicked, Ace.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
the same.
oh,
It's the
it's the
same
same one?
question. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oops. Sorry, go ahead. Andre said, what methods or tools can be implemented to ensure a comprehensive understanding of data's context, including its collection environment and sensor specifics before it's used for training? I do want to just give like a disclaimer. Maybe I should have gave this before. Like we're not like all like super AI experts or like you know what I mean. Just putting that disclaimer out there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can really understand. I think you have to be sort of like a weather IoT device expert to maybe say what would actually be needed there. Like I said, there are some projects working in this space that are thinking about this and specifically thinking about that specific thing I mentioned about
Yeah.
like validating the location of the sensor, like down to the meter or whatever, can be a just one piece that you would need to know before you include that sensor. Yeah, but I'm not an expert on this at all. So
Yeah, Andre, maybe we'll try to find a company that's doing decentralized identity and IoT. I think I said we're not AI experts, I meant IoT experts, but I'll try to bring somebody on about that, and then that might help to like educate all of us on how IoT would work with identity solutions. Um, my we're getting down to the end. I can't believe it's already been 45 minutes. I had like a couple more questions before we move into the fun questions. My main one of my main questions to you was like, I think from my perspective, right? AI has always been a thing, like in the background, like for years, but we didn't really pay it any mind because it was like, oh, for there's nothing really applicable we could do with AI, or like people that know how to like navigate AI and machine learning. They're like they have PhDs in this stuff. But then all of a sudden, like OpenAI came out. They're like, hey, y'all know how to use APIs. Like here's a very simple way, and then here's like this simple tool that even like your grandma could use, ChatGPT. And I'm curious, like so now it's like getting the hype that it wanted, and like now people are adopting it. I'm curious what your thoughts are for like the SSI industry to be able to get to that stage, because I think right now we're in the stage of only the people in the industry understand it.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, definitely like when ChatGPT came out with that sort of that web interface, that was like a huge moment. You didn't even have to understand how APIs worked. All you had to do was go to a website, and now you're using AI. Um, and it needs to be that easy for people. The problem, and this has been a problem that people bring up at conferences in the SSI space all the time, is really about like key management. So you need to, for SSI to be real, you need to own your own keys, control your own keys, manage your own DID using those keys. And like there are totally ways to do that. But like, for example, the way that I would do that in my daily life involves using a Chrome extension, right? I use like MetaMask or something like MetaMask to manage my Ethereum keys. And that's fine. And it totally works, and it gets you to that kind of like, yeah, pure SSI, self-custodied future. And then obviously if you don't want to, you can have someone else custody your keys. That's fine, but you need to be able to custody your keys. But a Chrome extension is not good enough. It needs to be built into the browsers themselves, because people do not want to install Chrome extensions. Like your average person is not just going to install some extension because you tell them, hey, this does something that you don't care about, right? Like requiring a Chrome extension or even an app installation on your device, that's a huge barrier for most people. And so I think that you really have to get to the browsers and even the mobile phone OS people and convince them, hey, we need this functionality built right in. I think even like the mobile phone company people are a little bit closer to it. Like obviously Apple and Google Wallet support verifiable credentials to a certain extent, but it's not necessarily super apparent to people that it's happening. But being able to have being able to have that directly in the browser or something in a secure way can open up a lot of things. And then the other side would be, like I mentioned, there are 186 or whatever DID methods. I am of the opinion that we don't yet have one that's good enough for mass audience. So every DID method that's out there makes some trade-offs that are not good enough. They're either trade-off on decentralization or scalability or updatability, like key rotation, stuff like that. And so I think that really, I hope that a bunch of different companies can come together and say, well, we've been here for like 7-8 years. That's really when like the DID space kicked off, I think, is about 7 or 8 years ago. I wasn't part of it then, so I can't remember exactly. But we've learned a lot in that time, and there's been a lot of cool experiments. I think we're ready to say, let's develop this like world-class end user focused DID method that doesn't compromise on decentralization or self-custodying. I think we can do that. I have some random ideas on how to do that, but it needs to be something that a lot of companies come together, companies and people and different organizations come together to agree on this.
That is amazing. Those are very key points, because I've always thought about the mobile phone OSs getting to that point easily, but I've never really, extended my thought towards like browsers and stuff like that. Because today browsers like internally already support some form of password managers that you can actually store your password for you without, having to install, like, what's it called? I can't remember the name right now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
1Password. Yeah, thank you. You have to, install 1Password and the likes. And I think if we get browsers to that point, it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem, because adoption will get them to that point, and then to also help with even more adoption. But it's really interesting to see, like, it's not just, mobile phone OSs, and there are different angles that could just continue to make it easier for people to manage their keys in any capacity. And I think that's just insightful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I love that. That's the first time someone said that on the stream. Usually their thoughts are like, we just need more use cases and stuff. But that's what you're saying about bringing it to the browser, like provides an ease of experience. I'm curious, like that's a business idea for folks. Like, go ahead and do it. Because like I don't know if people work with Google for the Google Password Manager, they make their own browser. I don't know, but I'm curious, like however they approach it. There's another question here. Do you foresee this DID method to be blockchain based? Maybe KERI? I don't know if that's how you say it.
Yeah, that is. I'm not super familiar with KERI. I went to KERI 101 at IIW last year, and I started to understand it. It's definitely interesting. I know more about blockchain, so the way I'll tell you really quickly. My idea is about because we maintain the did ether DID method, which is DID method on Ethereum, and people use that for some use cases, but it has this friction of having to pay transaction costs whenever you want to update your did method or add a service endpoint or something like that. So my thought is to kind of create a system where people can submit these transactions, not like they can sign transactions, not pay for them, don't pay the gas cost, and they submit them to kind of like a relayer who then batches these transactions up into like thousands of transactions get batched up into one, like a roll-up style basically. And then that batch transaction is like the hash of that blob of data basically is put on the blockchain. And so then you can really, it still has the sort of like decentralization. It's provable on the blockchain, all of these like did method updates. But as an end user, my specific update only really cost, 1/1000th of the dollar that they had to pay to put it on the blockchain. And now you get to a scale where web applications can pay that cost on behalf of their users. And the users can still do it on their own if they want to, or if they can't find a web app that is like willing to pay for them. But for most use cases, the web app, whoever's running that service, will like gladly pay for it to onboard. People will pay 1/10 of a cent to onboard a new user, no problem. So I think it's maybe a good middle ground there. Like batching did updates across thousands of users into a single transaction is the basic idea.
Cool. All right. Ace, do you have any last minute comments or questions? Because I think looking at the time, I might move into the fun questions.
Yeah, we get to the end. It's been a very educative one. Ton of interesting questions from the audience and amazing answers from Nick as well.
Yeah, I agree. All right. We're gonna transition into some of the fun questions. I'll remove the screen share. All right. So this was like, I'm gonna echo what Ace said. This was really good. Thank you so much. And there's even some parts where like I'm not as in depth into like decentralized identity yet. So I'm like, oh cool. I never even thought about that. Okay, so first question. What's your favorite food?
Okay, I'm gonna give you two answers, I think, because my actual favorite food is cheeseburgers. It has to be cheeseburgers. Specifically like a smash burger, thin patty, American cheese, everything on it. From like Five Guys basically does like a pretty perfect cheeseburger in my opinion. That style for sure. But I also would say, in terms of food that I cook, my favorite food is like, I don't know if it has a name, but it's like this it's chicken with this like creamy mushroom sauce. I love it. I think that when you cook your own food, like you're smelling it as it's going, and it makes you more excited to eat it. So sometimes that's better than cheeseburgers.
I was trying to Google it while you were talking because I'm vegetarian. So I'm like, chicken
Okay.
with creamy mushroom
We
sauce.
could do it with
What's that?
we could do it with
It
something
looks
else.
good. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
do it with like vegetarian meat.
I'm
That
sure there's
sounds
substitutes.
good.
Yeah.
I agree with you that when you cook your own food, it tastes better. But I have a problem where I'll start cooking and then I'll start eating it while I'm cooking and then it's basically done. It's like, oh dang, I ate all the food. Someone else said, or Tanya said, I love cheeseburgers. Thoughts on that, Ace? You eat meat, right? Thoughts on cheeseburgers, thoughts on chicken with mushroom sauce stuff. I love
They're
mushrooms.
pretty nice. I don't eat them every time, but they're pretty nice. They're pretty nice.
All right. Next question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Huh. I mean, I think it would have to be teleportation. Like, I'm trying to think of from a purely greedy perspective, what could I accomplish the most with? Teleportation is better than flying. I think it's better than turning invisible, because being invisible doesn't get me into the bank vault, right? So
Not the bank vault.
Depends on your timing.
yeah, true.
Oh my goodness. I
Not
have a
the
different
bank.
arc for that. My arc is to balance duplication with teleportation.
Oh, okay.
So I can be in multiple places at multiple times instantly.
That seems like it would
Teleport.
get confusing though.
Would you like Kage Bunshin? Sorry, that's an anime reference if you watch
Okay.
anime.
You could be like the girl from Invincible. Duplicate. She
Duplicate,
has
yeah.
one person, like one
Mhm.
version of herself at home.
But imagine if duplicates could teleport.
Oh, that's crazy. I don't know. I am team teleportation though. I say this all the time. I would love to teleport to a conference, and then once the conference is done, I teleport right back home.
Yeah.
Forget about the planes.
No airports. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite, last question, what is your favorite Beyonce song, if you have one?
Yeah, so I'm really bad with like song names.
Okay.
I think that the Spotify, big part of the Spotify generation has ruined me, where I don't buy CDs, and look at them. But I will say probably Single Ladies.
Oh,
Single ladies.
Yeah.
In addition to being a developer advocate, I'm a Beyonce advocate. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to get more people on. What's like your favorite style of music? Genre, I'm sorry.
I mostly listen to what's called post-punk.
Post-punk.
Yeah.
Google it. Interesting. Okay. Because I was gonna try to suggest something within that genre, but I don't know. I don't know post-punk. So I was gonna be like,
No.
if you like this genre, you might like this Beyonce song. But I was like, I don't know what post-punk is.
Well, she's doing country now, so maybe she'll do a post-punk album next.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
There is a question. So first off, thank you so much for coming to talk to us, sharing your wisdom, your time. Like I thought this was all really interesting, even putting in time to the demo to revive it again. There is a question. People want to know like how to contact you, and I am gonna like say like, hey, how can we, anything you want to promote, anything that we should highlight for you?
Yeah. The best way is probably to join the Veramo Labs Discord.
Okay.
That's where the best place to ask questions about Veramo, and you can find me in there and just send me a Discord DM. I would say, and there's a link to our Discord on just veramo.io that you can follow. I do technically have a Twitter account, but I actually deleted it when there was an ownership change over there, and had to make a new one. So I only have like 4 followers, and I don't really use it. I'm on Bluesky at nickreynolds.online. But yeah, find me on Discord and just join the Discord to learn more about Veramo. And like I said before, we do, as part of Diff, we have a Veramo user group, meets every Thursday. The times, we alternate times each week. One is more suited for people in like European time zones, and one is a little bit easier for American time zones. So if you will, please join that if you're interested in just learning about Veramo, or you want to contribute or show off something that you've built. And again, if you want the details of that, you can just join our Discord. We announce when those meetings are starting in there. Yeah.
Thank you. I tried to put as many links as possible. Like that's the Decentralized Identity Foundation link. I'm sure they have the link to the Slack on there. And then the Veramo link as well is there. And they have a link to joining their Discord. And I will say you are responsive on Discord, because the way I get people to join this, I'm just like hitting them up on any platform.
Yeah.
And you responded on Discord. So
yeah. Yep.
All right. Any last thoughts from either of you?
Oh, just awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank everyone in the audience. Great questions. Thank you for showing up every other week. Always amazing to stop by and learn something new with everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. Thank you again to the audience. Thanks for the good questions and tuning in. So it's not just us talking to ourselves. See you next week. For on Friday, next Friday, we're going to talk to Portable, and they are basically doing decentralized identity solutions for open banking. All right, bye y'all.
Bye.